Hi folks, I've been producing a vlogumentary series. Some of you will have watched it. I haven't actually completed this series. I've still got 3 episodes to edit. So this is both an apology to those who've been patiently waiting to watch the remaining 3 episodes of the series, including the concluding one, which will be episode 19, and to thank you for your patience. But also because I think this particular episode 17, which looks at the intellectual establishment and the issue of cognitive dissonance, is particularly important. And I kind of feel after 16 episodes of travelling around Sweden, Poland, the UK, Belarus, interviewing a whole bunch of people, making a little bit of a documentary series out of it, I'm starting to feel as if I am getting warm. You know what? Even if you don't go with the arguments put forward in A Lawyer Investigates episode 17, I hope at the very least you'll have gained a better grasp and understanding of what cognitive dissonance is. It's an expression I've heard people use and never really understood what it meant until just recently. Now, the reason I think this is a good time actually to be publishing episode 17 on this particular topic is I've become a little bit, is alarmed too strong a word? Extremely quizzical about what has been happening the last 6 to 9 months in relation to news over the vaccines and their efficacy. I've never had a particular issue and haven't drilled into the topic about vaccines, whether they're effective or not, etc., etc. But I have trusted this gentleman, Dr. John Campbell, over the past few years, who has been on a real journey and is someone whom you trust. He's methodical, reliable, seems to be coming from a genuine place. He doesn't have a particular agenda. I think we've become quite suspicious, haven't we, of not just government, obviously, but of the mass media, what we're being told by professionals even. Have they got an axe to grind? Are they being totally scientific, or is there some other force that's influencing them? So Dr. John Campbell's rather, as I say, alarming videos of recent weeks have made me sit up in my chair and wonder whether or not the topic of this particular episode isn't and shouldn't be applied to what's happening in relation to vaccines. Look, the point is not so much whether or not he's right or wrong, although he's, as I say, just so methodical, and the conclusions they're reaching aren't rocket science, and they're from data that's freely available on government websites or from data from the vaccine manufacturers themselves and the random trials, controlled trials that they undertook. But it's not so much about that, and this is where I come on to the kind of the vibe of this whole channel, whether you're just generally interested in topics of a global importance, or whether you just want to get better as a lawyer and kind of, what's the word, exercise that muscle, that legal faculty, which is essential as a lawyer. It's that we're only hearing one side of the argument. I'm beginning to wonder whether or not a lot of conclusions that I arrived at early on in my series don't actually hold true. Hold true. But that aside, it's as if, you know, if you can imagine in court, you know, when you hear a prosecution barrister, and you'll see it in a movie, he'll stand up and make a speech, and after you've heard him, the jury will be convinced that the defendant is guilty and, you know, should be sent straight to the electric chair. Whereas then the defence counsel stands up, and after you've heard him, you know, he should be sainted. You know, he's whiter than white, and how dastardly have the state been in trying to put away an innocent man, sort of 12 Angry Men style. The point is, both on the coronavirus, the lockdown efficacy and and just that general narrative is promulgated not just at a government level but by the media and even by the intellectual establishment, whether we're only hearing that prosecution argument, and whether or not the same thing doesn't hold true for what's now happening in relation to how quiet the government is being in addressing serious excess deaths of the last 6 to 9 months that Dr John Campbell talks about. That's those deaths that are occurring each month over the 5-year average, that you wouldn't expect. Why the government is not addressing these issues, or is simply addressing them in just brushing them off. Oh, well, it's the public health service under strain, which doesn't seem at all a satisfactory or adequate response, and never engages with the arguments being put forward by people like Dr. John Campbell. This brings me on to episode 17. Is it possible that there's been some kind of emperor's new clothes situation in which we are now, both our leaders and ourselves, in deep denial about?